Isepkaquelam legislators, Sawasan Misteu, staff and guests. Well, here we are, back at it. Hope you had a good weekend and you're rested and you're ready to tackle today's agenda, the work in front of us. Much gratitude, Haichka, Haisapka, to Connie and Jessica for the table blessing and for drubbing us in. We really appreciate that medicine that you bring to us, to starting our work off in a good way. Also want to thank Osiaza Catering for providing another wonderful meal for us tonight. This meeting marks our 6th meeting of the 2026 legislative session, and like with every meeting, we have a lot of important matters to discuss tonight, and I'm looking forward to hearing your input on these matters. But before we proceed into tonight's agenda, I would like to invite our young relative, Dayton Jacobs-Mayo, to open our meeting with a prayer. Haichka. Dayton, I know you're used to being the feather runner, but you're going to have to wait for the feather from your sister.
Dayton Tanasquich Talitzen at Swasan, I Konashquala Quincy Quetzalala. Today I'm going to be saying my grandma Barb's prayer that she wrote and I learned during the summer. Ich lat titwials, at sit solsiem, huienem at a sant stitwials, sit thama u I mistalch skakip, he chlemetalch tanatwayal. Tathiquam shuch I sawatalth a tatsiais quam shuch ta squalwinst. Let us pray. Listen to our prayer. Thank you for bringing us together. Watch over us today. Please help us with our work and keep our thoughts strong. Aichka.
Oh, CM, thank you so much, Dayton. It's amazing that you support us in so many different ways at our Legislative Assembly, Dayton. Aichka. I'd like to say a special thank you to all of the Sawasan members that have come here to support us at every meeting. Some of them are advisory members as well, and so they wear dual hats. We meet on Tuesday and Thursday, and sometimes they meet on Monday and Tuesday, and then they come on Tuesday and they come on Thursday. Sometimes they meet on Wednesday, but they come on Tuesday and they come on Thursday. So I really appreciate all of the time and effort that our advisory council members commit and give to this piece of work. And also to the members that come here and support us, sometimes sharing a meal with us and sometimes just being here to observe the work. And I also would be remiss, I want to say thank you again to our staff and to their families. It's difficult to be away from your families, and to our legislatures, the same thing, the sacrifices that your families are making for you to be here tonight. It does not go unnoticed and unappreciated. We were very grateful for that. I'm very happy to extend a warm welcome to our guests that are joining us from various bodies, BC Environmental Assessment Office, Fortis BC, and the Vancouver Fraser Port Authority. I'm just going to bellow out your name, and if you could just at least raise your hand so that we can see who you are. Brianna from the EEO, Megan from EEO, Randy from Fortis, Jordan from Fortis, Aaron from Vancouver Fraser Port Authority, Laura from Vancouver Fraser Port Authority, and Gemma. There we go, Gemma. Thank you for coming here tonight and joining us in the work that we're doing. We really appreciate you showing interest in the schedule that is part of the work that you're doing. I'd like to thank the staff from Sawasan that are here to support this as well as that schedule that Andrew's going to be presenting, and to Jessica Cross-McCauley, who's our liaison, who is such a good hostess in making sure that the people that we work with, we bring them together and that we have that liaison helping to bridge those relationships and help those relationships along. So welcome and thank you for joining us. I hope that you see another perspective of the work that we do and how important it is for us to be working together in this legislative session. Thank you, Dayton, again for starting us off in a good way. Oh my goodness. Really appreciate the prayer in the language. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that it's the time of the frog, I believe, in our Salish calendar. And as the short days grew longer, the voices of the little frogs could be heard, signaling that spring was emerging. During this month, the wonder of nature repeats its amazing process. Mother Earth warms up, and the hibernating frog wakes up from its winter sleep, announcing the coming of spring. Spring emerges with the sounds of little frogs waking up from hibernation, and as the season shifts, less rain and warmer weather will help dry out the land, enabling the drying and preservation of food. I just wanted to acknowledge that we are changing seasons, and then in our Salish calendar, this is noted. And I really appreciate that staff has made the effort to set out that calendar. And I just wanted to acknowledge that, you know, we're at the beginning of March already, and that we're at the beginning of the seasonal change. So thank you for that work and having that information available to us so that we can support the traditions of our seasons transitioning. Haichka. I'd like to make another warm welcome to yet another Jacobs Mayall, and that is Madison Jacobs Mayall. Welcome back, Madison. It's good to have you join us again as the Feather Runner. It seems like we have a great team of Kuyakuya's family coming here, her son, one of her sons and her daughter to come here and support us. Thank you, Madison. We're so grateful for you to be here, and thank you for making sure that your brother didn't speak without the feather. Really appreciate that. As is our custom, legislators and staff, we remind you to wait until you have the feather from Madison before speaking and pass it back to the feather runner when you are finished. Also, I would like to make a gentle reminder to everybody to put your phones on silent, please. I really appreciate that. I would also like to acknowledge that we have 3 legislatures who are participating online as they are not feeling well. We have Legislature Halka Mattia, Louise Alm, Legislature Tismalot, Kathy Gange, and Legislature Chief Squamish, Laura Cassidy are participating online. So when it comes time to voting, I will be asking them for their verbal votes and regrets from Tequila Legislature Bryce Williams. For tonight's agenda, we will start with the second reading of Schedule 10, Community Health and Family Services. Next, we'll have the second reading of Schedule 12, Territory Management. Then we will have an update on major projects. Following that, we will move to second reading of Bill 002-2026, the Property Taxation Amendment Act 2026, including a report from the Advisory Council on the bill. Legislators, are there any comments or questions about tonight's agenda? Your silence is acceptance. All right then, without further ado, let's move on to our next item. Our first item, second reading of Schedule 10, the Community Health and Services Schedule of Bill 001-2026. As a reminder, the second reading is a time for debating the substance and merit of the schedule. It's your time to ask questions, clarify any kind of components of the budgets, make sure that you have all the information that you need to vote on this schedule. I would now like to call upon Lakwia Crystal Lynn Gurniak, Director of Member Services, to give us the presentation on Schedule 10. Lakwia?
Haichka Squeakquel and Haichka Maddie for the feather. So this is the Health and Community and Family Services budget. So I'm just going to Can you go back one more, please? So I just wanted to kind of go over the department structure for the health department. There's the Director of Member Services, which is me, and then we have Selena Moore, who's the Manager of Health and Community Services. And under Selena, there's a number of staff members, but also contractors. So she has the Health Administrative Coordinator, the Health Navigator, the new Health Navigator and the new Traditional Healer, the Registered Clinical Counselor, and then the contracted staff that are under the mental health umbrella, and then the Health Supervisor. And then under the health supervisor, there's a series of staff members. So under the health budget, there are three main categories. One is primary care, the next one's continuing care, and then health promotions. And then we'll get into a little bit more detail in each of the department areas. So the health services budget expenses are down by 8.6%. And that's because a lot of the programs have moved out of health and over into family services. So once we go through it, I'll explain what's been moved over. But the core is all of the staff within the health department. Primary care is really the clinic and the TFN primary care, the clinic operations and mental health services. Continuing care is the nurses and the care aides, the adult respite program, and then health promotion is really the health fairs that we have on a regular basis. So we'll get into a little bit more detail on each of them. These are the three new positions that we are recommending in this year's budget. The first one is a community health worker, which was formerly a care aide, but we're now calling them community health workers. We do need extra support. We do have care aides that are working 7 days a week, 10 hours a day. So having that extra support and being able to expand extend it to 7 days and 10 hours a day. The next one is the Healthcare Navigator. We received funding from the South Delta Primary Care Network for both a Healthcare Navigator and a traditional healer. We're still working out those details in a MOU at the moment, but there is funding to hire both those positions. So out of the three positions, 2 of them will be funded. It's not quite working. We might need to change the batteries on these. So just some of the highlights in the health program under primary care. We are in the progress of expanding the clinic in the the previous youth center and previous elder center. The partner with the Delta school, with the Delta PCN, and then realignment to the men's house and post-treatment services from health over to family services. Standardizing the health service delivery. Centralizing the health data collection with our new EMR. Well, I wouldn't say it's new, maybe in the last year. And then development of the mental health intake and triage system. So primary care, the activities under primary care is the clinic operations, which includes the family physician, nursing, and the day-to-day clinic delivery. Integrated psychology counseling services within primary care, and clinical supervision to support quality and consistency and safe practice with our mental health team. The budget has increased to stabilize the TFN-led primary care services, increase member access to utilization of the clinic-based services, and integration of the clinic services to improve continuity of care. Continuing care is really the community-based nursing support programs, the in-home care assistance and coordination, and then the adults, respite and auxiliary medical supports. That budget's increased as well for the member health needs requires coordination and continuous of community-based care. And the health promotion. Under health, we're really targeting the health fair that we do once a year. We're hoping to do that twice a year and more themed health promotions like diabetes awareness and a number of different promotions on a monthly basis. So we need, this budget has increased, but it's the need for the consistent and planned delivery of prevention and education activities, increase in focus and early engagement and community-based health promotion. I'll go into a little bit more detail in the next, I think it's the next slide. No, I'll go back one. So other relevant activities are coordinated with primary care and continuing care and focuses on prevention, education, and early connection. I thought it had one more slide. So under community services, there's me, the director, and also Selena is the manager of community and health. And really that is the membership office for renewing of status cards, enrollment, and then the community service coordinator. So these are the services that are under community services. And this budget is down by 8.6% as well. So that's the staff. The $586,000 is, or $567,000. The core is staff. Member records, we've increased that a bit to really support the member records office to order ID, status card, birth certificates, and other ID that members may need. The community support services is. I think there's a typo in the budget there. 135,000 down to 4,000. Oh, the food service. Yes, so that has been moved over to family services. So that's one of the departments that we moved out of community services over to family services for, I think, to really align the department. And so the food services program will now be in with income assistance where it was originally, and I think it fits better within that department. And then we have $350,000 in there for community safety strategy and the implementation and administration of that, the community safety strategy. So we budgeted $350,000 last year, and we'll keep the $350,000 in there for this year. We've also added a new position under community services to really support the implementation of the community safety strategy. There's a lot of work that will need to take place with the community safety strategy. And this position will really help the administrative tasks and data collection and reporting that will be required. These are some of the highlights within community services. We moved the community or the membership office from the government services building in the back here over into the main office for better access for members, defining roles in the member services department, and strategic direction and priority setting for community services. Expanding involvement and engagement in the membership-related work, and improved clarity and internal pathways and member access. So member records, I won't go into all of the detail because I think everyone knows what that's about, but it's maintaining and managing all of the membership and enrollment records, the Indian registry services to members, and then membership in attending all of the engagements. That budget has increased, but it's because we want to attend all of the service or all of the engagement sessions, and I think it went from like $40,000 to $55,000 in this budget. So the community safety strategy, the program includes, I know we've done a number of presentations on this, but it's really to the coordination and oversight related to the community safety strategy, internal planning and alignment across the departments contributing to the community safety priorities, participation in meetings and engagements related to the community safety implementation. We're on to family services. So the Family Services Department, there's me as the Director of Member Services. There's Terry Burnell, who is the Manager of Family Services, and she has a number of staff underneath her, and then they all have staff under them as well. So the Family Services Department now includes the Community Pantry, the Community Wellness and the Men's House, Justice and Diversion, Social Assistance, the Child's Respite Home, and the Child and Family Wellbeing. So this department has increased by 87%, and that's really because we've moved some programs out from health services and into family services. So it looks quite large. But also we have now the operation of the men's house, and have just hired, I think, 6 staff members into the men's house. So you can see that the core department in wages has increased dramatically, and that's really because of the men's house. We are now just, I think, last week fully staffed to open up 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Social assistance is the same as last year, $509,000. Family services has increased as well. The demand for family services support and programs and services has increased, and we're meeting the needs of the requests that come in on a regular basis. The Child Respite House, it looks like it's down, but really it's because we had $570,000 worth of staff and contracted services. And now we've moved them from contracted services into staff. So that's the other part of the increase in core that you see. And then the $77,000 is really to maintain and run the program throughout the year. And we are also saving money because we're not renting the house anymore. So I think we save about $80,000 a year from not renting that home in Tawasin. We have the Justice and Diversion Program is $50,000. The community wellness is increased as well because that's part of that's the men's house, but we've also increased it to include post-vention services. So for many years we've talked about creating, we have invest a lot of money in treatment services, but we didn't have a lot of programs for post-treatment. So this is where the post-treatment comes in, and it's based out of the men's house, but it also includes all of the community or anybody that's attending treatment, and these are the services when you come back as well. And then the community pantry was $105,000 last year, and then up to $197,000 this year, and that's again because of the increased uptake that we're getting in the programs. I think we have about 35 families and about 20 single people accessing the program, roughly. So these are the new positions that we are requesting in family services. So we're requesting another child and family services worker to really support the needs of the community, and then a social assistance outreach worker. And that's really to support all of the individuals on income assistance to transition either into post-secondary, into any kind of trades training, gainful employment, and sometimes skill building, resume writing, mock interviews, and really working with our government, PIGA, the HR department, and the post-secondary department. So we're really trying to streamline supporting members into employment or post-secondary. Some of the highlights for family services in the last year are implementation of the new case management system, creating internal flows and services for minimizing over-servicing members, creating the new community wellness post-vention team, and creating a family wellness program and like parenting programs and those types of things. Social assistance, we've talked about that. We have 53 members on income assistance, and we are actively supporting them to either transition from employment or into post-secondary. The Child Respite House, we talked about that. So in the last year, we've supported 18 families and children, supporting them in the respite home. And we are saving $60,000. I thought it was $80,000, but $60,000 in rental costs. The Justice and Diversion Program. This is really to support members with navigating legal matters, First Nations court, probation, and liaising with external community partners. The Community Wellness Program, we talked a bit about that, but it's really like treatment, well-variety, Circle of Matriarchs, outreach support programs, the Men's House in connection to internal and external services. And it's really about prevention and post-vention services like I had talked about. And it's all based out of the Men's House. The community pantry, so we provide services to 28 to 45 families and 29 to 35 individuals. And that's it. I'm happy to take any questions.
Hajka, Sapka, Crystalline, Lakwia, for all of the work you and your team have put into this schedule, developing all of the programs, responding to members' needs, adjusting the program, and creating this schedule for this new fiscal year. I would now like to open the floor and invite legislators who might have any comments or questions and require clarification to the schedule so that they can be sure that they are fully informed before voting on this schedule. Legislators? Legislator Saltanat, Loretta Williams.
Thank you for the feather and allowing me to ask questions. I was encouraged at lunchtime to say, you better ask questions. I said, okay. So it's a lot of work that you guys are doing. So my question is, how many doctors, or is it just still the one doctor, and who has access to it? And how many nurses do we have on staff? And same on the health. Any idea who the traditional healer will be? Okay, Hajka.
Hajka, Legislator Saltanat. Lakwia?
Hajka Squeakwell and Hajka for the question. We just have the one doctor. We would like to hire or bring on another doctor. We're not actually paying for her. She's extended her private practice to TFN, but she's also looking for another doctor. We know that it's really important, and she's not, we need more. All Tsawwassen members have access to her when she's available. She's here two half days a week. When she first started, she had, I think, just over 200 members sign up with her within the first couple of weeks. So she really needed to take some time to really embed herself into the community. Nurses, I might ask Selena to come and answer that question. But, and the other one about the traditional healer, who that will be, we're not sure. We're still working out the details of the memorandum of understanding. So I might ask Selena to come and answer the nurses.
Selena's giving you 3 fingers.
There's 3 nurses.
Maybe I could have rephrased that. 3
Thank
nurses.
you. 3 nurses, yes.
Thank you. Hajka.
Selena, maybe Selena can stand. Selena is the Manager of Community and Health Services, and Terry Burnell is the Manager of Family Services.
Thank you. Legislators, any other legislators have any questions with respect to this schedule? Legislator Laquolia, Tia Williams.
Hajka Squeakle Sam and Hajka Maddie for the feather, and Laquia for the presentation. I have a number of questions, but the first one is around the traditional healer. What do you envision for this person? Would they be full-time in the office, and would they be able to assist other TFN departments? And I think that's it for the healer, because I could see that being a position eventually becoming sort of more in demand as we start to utilize them. Because I know personally, and then from my team, is something that we always are looking for. And then with the health navigator, I really like the idea of this. I'm kind of getting the gist that it's helping members decipher what type of care that they need. And would this navigator help with the development of the mental health intake and triage? And I think that's it for now. Hajka.
Hajka, Legislature, it's good to keep your questions to 3 and then cycle back, just so that gives staff enough time to scribble down your question, gather a response in a very fulsome way, and then you can always ask again. So, Laquia, would you like to respond? Would you like to have Selena respond? Selena?
Hi, Chika. Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Those are great questions. I'll start with the traditional healer one. That is in partnership with the South Delta PCN, and they are funding it. They have offered a 0.4 position for that. Just last week, we kind of went back to them and asked for more, because you're right, it is something that will be accessed more. We'd like to see it as a full-time position and utilized everywhere. The health navigators as well, there's 2 of them that they're going to fund through the South Delta PCN. We just found that out last week too. So that is essentially when you're going into the hospital, when you're needing physiotherapy, when you're needing those types of things. Just maybe can you repeat the last part of that question?
Fajka, Madison, can you give Legislature Lacolia Tia Williams the feather back? Legislature, could you provide a little more clarification to the last part of your question?
For the navigator, would they also be helping with the development of the mental health intake and triage?
Fajka, for that clarification, Lacolia. Selena?
Hachka, thank you for that. What that is usually a mental health clinician. It's not necessarily the same as a health navigator. It is something that we need the help with. So we may be able to work something out there. Right now, it's the mental health team. The contracted workers are doing the triage, and we're supporting with the administrative staff. Does that answer all the questions?
Fajka, thank you so very much. Legislature Taylor Baker? Taylor, thank you.
Haichka Maddie for the feather, and Haichka Crystal and Selena and Terry for the presentation. I have a few questions. I'll start with the first on the auxiliary medical support program that I've discussed a few times over the last few weeks. I noticed this year it's doubled for the budget, so just seeking information on why, because I know currently from previous questions I've had that the criteria to be eligible for the program hasn't changed, so just wondering why the budget has doubled for this year. And my second question, sorry, I gotta scroll up on this one document. The Feeding Futures program for the kids at the youth center K-7. Just wondering why Delta School District isn't continuing that pilot project this year. Haichka.
Haichka, Legislature, for those questions. Laquia, are you responding to those questions? Thank you.
Haichka Squeakle and Haichka Maddie for the feather term. The Feeding Futures, it was a 1-year pilot project for $25,000, and it was just more than, they didn't have the funding, so there was no more funding left to continue on with the program. So that was a 1-year opportunity. And I'm going to pass the other one on, the auxiliary medical support question, to Selena, if that's okay.
Thank you so much. Selena?
Hachka. So the medical auxiliary support, the criteria hasn't changed, but what we saw was a huge need for like medical emergencies. There was lots of travel requests that we were unable to actually fulfill. And we see that need a lot, especially with more members coming home and then they have to actually return to where they were living before. So we'd like to be able to support that and keep it under the same criteria.
Thank you so much. Any other questions or comments, legislators? Legislature Spilauktowit, Terry Splachton.
Archibald Squeakwall, thank you, Feather Runner. One comment. It's good to see the traditional healer position included. That aligns with our values and self-determination. I also have a question. Are members still allowed to hire their own healer if needed? And I think that's it for now. Haichka.
Haichka Legislator. Crystal?
Haichka Squeakquel and Haichka Maddie for the feather, and Haichka Legislator for the question. Yes. Short answers, yes. Yes, you can.
Is there a process for that maybe?
I think in the past, what people have done is just reached out to staff, and then we just line it up and help with that. And the Language and Culture Department can help, and Health Department can help.
Well, that's a lovely piece of information. Thank you very much for that answer and that question. Legislature Kuakvia, Andrea Jacobs.
Haichka Squeakquel CM. Haichka Maddie for the feather. Can you expand on the family wellness program for the parenting support? That's always good to see. Just curious about that program. And then question around, oh, 1 second, just let me go to my page. For treatment of drug and alcohol, that program, does TFN fund non-members besides non-member spouses? And how many times can one member access treatment? Is there a maximum for that?
Haichka Legislature Kuakvia. Legislate Crystal, are you going to respond, or would you like to have Terry respond? Terry?
Haichka, thank you for having me. So yeah, the family wellness is inclusive of any aspect of wellness. So it could be parenting, it could be parent-teen relationships, it could be relationships between partners, just looking at overall wellness for people. So whatever, that can look in many capacities. So it can be one-to-one support, it can be group work, it can be access to service and support. We're definitely trying to bring more services into community, as opposed to, I think a lot of our stuff has been external in the past. And so that a lot of the programs are not very culturally safe. So recognizing there's a huge need for that. So bringing it more into community. Okay. So currently, we are in the process of working on the policy. There is no definite number of how many times somebody can attend treatment. But I think what we've recognized is, like I think what Crystal Lynn spoke about earlier with the access or the lack of access to that post-vention care. What we've seen was people going to treatment, accessing service, but then not having the support to like implement those tools coming home. So the hope is that we'll see that minimize, where people are not needing to go back continually, but having the people to walk alongside them through that journey. Yeah, and in terms of non-members, I think that up until now, I don't think we've supported any non-members, but there are member spouses that we've supported.
Haichka, for those responses, really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Legislature Sultanat, Loretta Williams.
Okay, Haichka for the feather. And basically, you mentioned post-treatment for the males in is that recovery house? Did I say that right? But is there a place for the females to go, or can they go to that same building as the men? And the other one is in regards to the records, I lost it. But basically, it's in regards to crossing the border. And we heard that we needed a letter of quantum blood. So is that quantum for how much Tsawwassen blood you have in you, or is it quantum for the amount of native blood you have? And is it going to be a generic letter for the community, or do we have to go through you guys to get a letter? Okay, Haichka.
Haichka legislators for those questions. Crystal, would you like to respond to parts of it and then ask Terry for some parts? Okay, Crystal, you go first, please.
Heichka Squeakquel and Heichka Maddie for the feather and for the question. So we, the blood quantum letters I can answer. So it won't be a generic letter. It's for each individual member who's looking to cross the border. And we have to have letters that state that you are, I think, 50% or 51% Indigenous or have Indigenous blood. So we have those letters. Well, our membership clerk, our administrator, will be able to type those letters up for members who are interested in crossing the border. I hope that answers the question. And then Terry can answer the question regarding the post-treatment for females and males.
Heichka, Crystal, Terry?
Heichka. So what we've done with the postvention team is we have the ability to support men and women. And we have a second home that we've created 2 emergency placements in. So we have the men's house and we have the children and women's respite house at this time. So for emergencies, we can bring people to that. It's a separate unit and separated from the upstairs and the downstairs. And so the same with the men's house. We've also done the same thing so that we've got emergency placements if we need to bring someone in an emergency and they might not be in the greatest space. And I think then looking at future plans as well.
Heichka, thank you for that response. Legislature Pelihua, Don Williams.
Heichka Squeakle Sam, Heichka Maddie for the feather. Just a couple things. So for the manager of health, is that going to be posted for a separate position? And then also just more of a comment on the social assistance outreach worker. I've said this before, year after year, for the social assistance budget. I really like to hope that this position could lower our SA budget. We have so much around us for employment opportunities and supports for our members. And I love all the supports we have, but I just don't want to be doing too much for our members where they're not getting out there and doing stuff for themselves. Just a comment on that. And then another one about the auxiliary medical, looking at the advisory report. They had some recommendations and comments as well. And I think mainly from what I take out of it is for our members to be able to access some sort of supports, especially for prescription medications or what have you. For paying for like travel for people to go back to their home area for appointments and stuff. Like, I'd just rather support members in other ways. This is a huge budget, and you know, if members have specific prescriptions or medical needs and they're only partially covered through whatever health coverage they have, I'd like TFN to be able to support them with the difference, especially when we have things like treatment. I know it's not a one-time thing, but it's a lot of money, and if members are accessing that more than once is one thing, but when we have other members that just need that little bit, whether it's prescription related or auxiliary or anything that's giving them a tough time to get through because they're not fully supported, I'd just like to have a bit more for that. Heichka.
Heichka, Legislature Crystal.
Heichka Squeakquel and Heichka Maddie for the feather and Heichka for the question. We are not posting for another manager or the manager of health. Selena is the manager of community and health services. And on the essay or on the question about lowering income assistance, I think that is one of the reasons why we are bringing in this position, so we could really support our members in a roundabout way and really accessing either gainful employment or post-secondary. So we're hoping to really support that way. And then the auxiliary medical, Selena and I have been talking about that, and we are working on policy. And so that's something that we'll take back and look at for sure.
Heichka, Crystal. Legislature Assaultanat, did you have a follow-up question? I'm sorry, I missed your little hand there. So Legislature Assaultanat, my apologies.
Okay, thanks for the feather. Maybe next time I'll bring my BC Lions orange hand, you know. So, but thank you for the questions. And also, thank you for your staff for identifying themselves. You know, like it's important that we know who we're talking to or who they think they know. Right? Thanks. Okay, this is just a follow-up in regards to the quantum letter. Just clarity, you said 50%, they have to be 50% Indigenous. So my question was, does that have to be 50% Tsawwassen, or is it Indigenous all across Canada or the United States? That was my question. Okay, thank you.
Crystal, or you want, thank you. Quintiltonat?
Thank you, Madison. We were just discussing this at Executive Council today, and there are a few different approaches to how you could classify people as an Indigenous. My kind of personal view is if you're a Tsawwassen member, you're a Tsawwassen member, and doesn't really align with U.S. views of indigeneity. So we as staff need to talk about the best way we can support members that need the support, and how we comply with the U.S. requirement and all that. So we are going to find a way to support members ultimately, if you get what I mean.
Heichka Quintiltonat, I really appreciate that extra response. Legislators, are there any other questions with respect to this schedule? Legislator Taylor Baker.
Hi, Shkamati. I just have a follow-up from my Feeding Futures question from earlier. So if Delta Secondary, or sorry, the Delta School District won't be funding this pilot program, will TFN still be providing lunches for the kiddos up to grade 7? Heichka.
Heichka, for that question, Legislator Laquia.
Heichka Squeakwell and Heichka Maddie for the feather, and thank you, or Heichka, for the question. So we've always provided lunch for all Tsawwassen students, and anybody in kindergarten to grade 12 actually who is wanting to make a lunch or to bring a lunch to school, we have the youth center available for that. It's just that we won't be making lunches for everybody. That was one of the challenges that DSD also found. Like, we were making 32 lunches every single day for all of the students, and so now students can come and make their own lunches if that's what they choose. But definitely, the youth center is available for students to come and make lunch at any day.
Heichka, for that answer. Thank you very much. I think we've had a really good and fulsome discussion. We've had some great questions, and I think we have a better understanding of this schedule. Thank you, Crystal, Selena, and to Terry for your responses and responding to the legislatures. I'd now like to move this schedule to third reading by reading the motion to do that. Motion to move Schedule 10, the Community Health and Family Services Schedule of Bill 001-2026 to third reading. Whereas the Tsawwassen Legislature has the authority under Section 512C of the Constitution Act to enact Tsawwassen laws, and whereas the Tsawwassen Legislature under Section 24(2) of the Financial Administration Act must approve the annual budget, and whereas under Section 23 of the Legislature Rules and Procedures Manual 2025, each bill must receive 3 separate readings. Whereas the legislature resolved on February 10th, 2026, that each schedule of Bill 001-2026 be reviewed, debated, and voted on separately during second reading. Therefore, be it moved that the Tsawwassen Legislature move Schedule 10, the Community Health and Family Services Schedule, to third reading. May I please have a mover? Moved by Legislator Spalaktowit, Terry Splachton. May I please have a seconder? Seconded by Legislator Lecolia, Teo Williams. All in favor, please raise your hands high. Legislators online. Legislator Chief Cassidy. Legislator Halkamatia.
I approve.
Legislator Tismalot. Kathy Genge.
I approve.
Thank you, legislators. This motion has been approved now and carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Let's move now to Schedule 12, the Territory Management Schedule of Bill 001, 2026. I'd like to call upon Andrew Bach, Director of the Territory Management, to give this presentation on this schedule. And I also just want to acknowledge that Courtney from Fortis is also a guest with us, and I had missed her. Courtney, please raise your hand. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that. Andrew?
Good evening and thank you. Thank you for the feather. Ladies and gentlemen, we find ourselves in the second year of our program reform. Our current ask for the budget overall is just a little bit more than $7.6 million, up 26.9% from last fiscal. Of this, roughly 50% goes to our treaty rights and title programs, 30% for a new suite of programs that we have christened environmental stewardship and sustainability, and the final 20% for conservation and harvesting programs. I don't see my PowerPoint on the screen yet. Oh, here we are. So these are the four program, or currently three program, sorry. We are currently running 3 program areas. This will expand to a 4th area next year, but all 4 of these centers account for the 41 different programs that we roll out across our little more than 10,000 square kilometers of territory. So I'm going to introduce you to the staff within each department and then go through some of the highlights for 3 of these functions. So this is our one of our new and emerging functions, the Office of the Director. This area is responsible for strategic oversight, HR, budgeting, and providing strategic leadership to the other aspects of the department. So I'm heading up this team. I'm responsible for all 4 functions, but you'll see me listed individually on each of them. We have an admin assistant that we also share with our TRT program, that is to say Treaty Rights and Title. And we are making space in our budget for a Traditional Territory Boundary Commission clerk. And this is going to be a largely developmental position. So if folks are aware of a bright and talented young Tsawwassen member, I'd certainly appreciate hearing from them. This is the structure of our Treaty Rights and Title Department. So of course, this is the major project work that Sheila Williams and her team have been doing. We're welcoming back Robin Buss, who is just back with us after some time on maternity leave. Very, very pleased to have her back aboard. And Amelia Cooper continues to run our referrals shop. For our rebranded Environmental Stewardship and Sustainability team, this is Crystal Lockhart and her team. This is the subject of quite a bit of change over this fiscal year. We have moved over the archaeology program from Treaty Rights and Title, and now we're placing that work inside of this department, which will be focused more on what we tend to call white coat science. This is where we rely on a lot of Western science and those kinds of approaches to natural resource management. You'll see in the breakout of the detail, there's a lot more expenditure this year for the establishment of the archaeology program, the repository, and also some money that we have been planning to spend for the training of field monitors, who will take on additional work above and beyond the archaeological monitoring function, and they will evolve into the Guardian Watchman and that program that we had made some descriptions of in our last session. And finally, our last major section, this has been rebranded as conservation and harvesting. This is where we generally deal with those resources that members consume and trade in. So we have broken this out into aquatic resources and terrestrial resources, roughly to say fisheries on one side of the house, and then plant gathering and hunting and barter on the other side of the house. So again, this houses the newly established and further growing Guardian Watchman program. And we're also doing some targeted work here to bring on new capacity to provide some relief for senior staff who are looking forward to retiring, or so they hope. We'll look at our budget for treaty rights and title, Department 3210. Altogether, this part of the budget is up 13.72% year over year. The major increase to this function is work that we have done in support of the Squatchanum initiative, which is the cumulative effects project that we are doing in concert with our friends over at the Musqueam First Nation. It's a significant program, but we do see a significant amount of contributions from our treaty partners, but also from industry as well. So this is a program that is expensive to run for certain, but it does recover a great amount of its expenditure. Have I gone too far? Conservation and harvesting, Department 4000. So total expenditures here up 59%. A lot of this is in response to new opportunities for harvesting, but also an increase in the amount that we are paying for food fish for distribution, and also a significant budget increase for the training program for the Guardian Watchman program. We have seen a remarkable interest in trading with other communities. So we've had some really great success bartering in things like crab and salmon for things like beef, but also some vegetables, farm staples. So that program is continuing to grow, and it's been very successful so far, and we're looking to continue to build on that success. This is one of those programs that doesn't, unfortunately, have a strong number of revenue sources. But again, we encourage our program managers and employees to seek out savings in terms of cost wherever that's possible. And with respect to environmental stewardship and sustainability, again, these are essentially brand new programs. There are some significant increases in this particular area as a function of staffing, so there are some COLA increases, but we are promoting from within, and so there are going to be some individual increases in staffing costs because one of the biologists is being promoted to a manager position and will take on additional responsibilities. We're going to be branching out into some new programming, which again includes some of the work that we have done in terms of moving over and establishing the archaeology program and the repository, but we're also moving into some new areas, including energy programming, which is an area that we've always kind of done off the side of our desks through the referrals function, but now we're taking a more active role in terms of trying to manage that resource across our territory. And knowing how urbanized that space is, it could be quite a challenge, but we finally are in a place where we're able to start developing that internal capacity and start doing that work. Some of the highlights from the year have included a great deal of progress in some of the major projects. And following this item on our agenda, one of my managers, Sheila Williams, will be doing a presentation focusing on some, not necessarily all, but some of these projects, including Roberts Bank Terminal 2, Tilbury, the Fraser River Tunnel project, and the Patella Bridge replacement project. Again, as I mentioned earlier, there's been a lot of work on the Squetchnam Initiative and the cumulative effects work that we're doing across our traditional territory, as well as establishing the Guardian Watchman program, increases in the harvesting program, and the establishment of our impact assessment framework. And this is work that we're doing along with UBC to establish an internal impact assessment project. We have been working kind of at the design phase to understand what should be included in that process. And we're just moving into a phase where we're trying to establish how we would trigger those processes and how we would recover resources when that process is invoked for projects that are led by groups other than Tsawwassen First Nation on our lands. And finally, there's been a bit of movement on the community dock. We heard in the spring session that this continues to be a priority for the community. We have identified some solutions along with the Vancouver Fraser Port Authority, who are working with us on an interim solution, but also a more permanent solution that would be a part of RBT2. So we're happy to be making some progress there, although, again, it is a small component of a very significant project. So it's likely to take a few more years to have that infrastructure in place. Looking at the year ahead, again, we have had one manager come back from maternity leave. We are planning to have one manager head off for training and education. So there's going to be a little bit of impact in terms of our core expenses, but we have accounted for that in this budget proposal. We are hoping to get to a place with the reform of the department so that each of the major projects would actually have a dedicated manager. The projects themselves are all quite sophisticated and very labor intensive. So we're hoping to do some more developmental work. And again, we're looking to target members through this. There'll be more in the way of training for archaeological monitors and guardian watchmen. And there'll be an additional supervisor for the environmental sustainability and stewardship programs. And again, this is really more focused on some of the energy programming that we're moving into. We encourage our managers, as always, to try to find more revenue sources. And we've had some very, very good success working with the province of BC, especially. And hopefully through agreements with other Crown partners and also with industry that hopefully we'll be able to find more resources and more synergies where those things are available. And we will continue to try to refine our approaches and look for efficiencies wherever those things are possible. We are engaged in quite a comprehensive review of all 41 of our programs and evaluating them against the honoring our ancestors strategy. So we're hoping to kind of contain what has been the steady increase of costs over the last 3 or 4 fiscal years. That's my presentation, and I'm happy to take your questions. And I know that my managers are here with me, so I may have to turn to some of them for some of the specifics. But with that, I thank you for your attention.
Heichka, Andrew, for your very thorough and detailed presentation. I was reflecting to many years ago when it was a one-person department with you acting as an octopus with many different arms going in so many different directions and so many different kinds of referrals and territory management, and then we had a separate department for harvesting and all those different things. And just how far we've come and grown. And now here you are, the director of the entire program and taking care of our teams that are part of title and rights, our teams for natural resources and stuff. It's just it's a remarkable journey to see one of our members come so far into doing so many different things that are now in such a great position to lead some important programming. So I just wanted to raise my hands to you, Andrew, and say thank you so much for that service. Really appreciate that. Legislators, I'm wondering if you have any questions or points of clarification about the schedule that you'd like to table now, legislators? Legislator Taylor Baker.
Haichka Maddie and Haichka Andrew for the presentation. I have a few comments and questions, but I will nail it down to 3. First being the potentially funded projects that's in the budget documents. I also see we have some of our partners here in attendance, so thank you for taking the time and coming and viewing the legislature. Question around, because it mentioned that they're potentially funded, so is there an update on what TFN has secured additional funding for, or is TFN paying our own funds for the potential projects that are on the go? My second question is on the hunting program. So it's to my understanding that we have a natural resources committee. Is that going to be embedded in the NRC committee, or is it going to be a separate committee on its own? And the second question I have is around the budgeted, I guess, programs from last year that are not continuing into this year. So such as the doc and the knowledge sharing and teaching programs like the beaded feather workshop and other hunting workshops. How come those are $0 this year? Just wondering if any more of those programs are being continued on into this year and we paid for it last year. I heard a really array of great things from the CORE and PAL program, but I know those have limited spots. So it'd be great to see more workshops like that this year. So thank you.
Thanks, legislator, for those questions. Andrew?
Thank you for the feather and thank you for the question. So where 0 appears in the summary of each individual component of the budget, it often means that that function has moved between departments. So all of those programs, of the 41 programs that we have listed out that we do across the territory, we continue to do all of them. All of the programs that were funded last year continue on this year, and particularly where they touch on the transfer of member skills. There was a specific resolution that came from, I want to say, the fall session last year, where there was a member resolution to facilitate the passing of skill between members. So we have supported that resolution directly, and it's one of those existing 41 programs that we provide. But it has moved from TRT, where it used to live, and now it lives under conservation and harvesting, kind of buried within the Guardian Watchman budget. So that's where that item exists. On the second question around the Natural Resources Committee, all of those consultative structures that we have relied on in the past continue to operate. Again, the funding for it is broken up into a couple of pieces because the Natural Resources Committee does a couple of different pieces of work. On its face, it may seem to be kind of more connected to conservation and harvesting, but they also do some work gathering community input for environmental stewardship and sustainability. So the costs have been broken across those two functions. And I know that when you start digging into the programming at that level, like the numbers can start to seem, quite difficult to navigate, but we haven't changed the amount of funding for that program. So all of the ways in which we had supported that program last year continue on into this budget. And bringing that back to the first question around partially funded projects, these are all major projects that are supported by proponent funding or government fund or crown funding. So we often design the amount of work that we do in response to the major projects to kind of align with the conditions of environmental assessments and those kinds of things. So we don't often work outside of that framework. So if there are times where there are pieces of information that we need in order to make a decision about how a project might impact us, then we will kind of work inside of our budget to see if there are places where we can find additional resources to answer those questions. But generally speaking, we work with the major project proponents to kind of outline the work that we're going to do, and then we'll provide a budget. They'll respond by providing a contribution. So if there are pieces of work that are that exist outside of the original budget that's envisioned, then we might have to be creative and look inside of our program for efficiencies to try to find a few dollars here and a few dollars there to do policy work. But most of the time, the work that we're doing is facilitated or paid for through contributions from either Crown governments or proponents.
Hechka Andrew, Legislature Kuyakuya, Andrea Jacobs.
Hechka Squeako CM, Hechka Maddie for the feather, and Andrew for the presentation. It's a big budget, an important budget, like all of them, I suppose, but I have a number of questions. Let's see. Just wondering if you can expand on the Guardian Watchman program. There was a course that had happened last year. We're going to be doing that again. But I also saw on page 11 that the archaeological monitors and the Guardian Watchmen will be combined. Just wondering what that means, and if there's still a chance for members to be involved in the Guardian Watchmen, or is it just a movement of some of our staff, or what that looks like. Hopefully people can still participate in that. I don't know if I should ask another question.
I think there's space for one more.
Okay. Okay. Expanding harvesting areas, page 8. Maybe what that means. Hechka Squeako CM.
Hechka Legislature, yeah. And if you have more, once Andrew's answered those, you can ask some more after that. Andrew.
Thank you for the feather, and thank you for the question. As before, I'll start with the last question first with respect to expanding harvesting areas. So this is really kind of more connected to our terrestrial harvesting programs, hunting and plant gathering. Last year, we had budgeted an amount to try to do some work looking at areas like Point Roberts. We didn't necessarily get a chance to do an awful lot of that work because of political instability, amongst other things. So we're carrying that work forward, but we're interested in trying to find other areas for our terrestrial harvesters to hunt and to gather, and hopefully also to start taking up opportunities where there have been hunting opportunities in the past that we haven't taken up. So every year, for instance, Parks Canada offers us an opportunity to harvest deer, fallow deer, on places like Sydney Spit. There hasn't been an awful lot of take up by the community because there's quite high costs for actually getting hunters over there and bringing game back. So we're hoping to be able to subsidize a little bit of that with some of this unused money that we've had budgeted for in the past. On the kind of bringing together the Guardian Watchmen and the archaeological monitors. So we spent just a little bit less, I believe, than $150,000 on doing a training program for the initial cohort of members who would become the Guardian Watchmen. And we noticed through sheer happenstance that a lot of them were also archaeological monitors, and interviewing them it became pretty clear that the archaeological monitoring work is highly seasonal. So for a lot of the year, some folks found themselves to be kind of chronically underemployed, but highly trained. So it started to make sense to us that we could look to some of those people to do more than one function and to try to keep them employed on a steadier kind of a basis. So this doesn't necessarily have a lot of additional costs for us, but we do have to do a little bit more work in terms of trying to keep track of how much we're spending for training and how much we're recovering from, like, for instance, archaeological monitoring of individual projects. And hopefully, if we can find additional funds, that will help to offset some of the costs of the Guardian Watchman programs, which cost a lot to begin with, but don't necessarily generate a lot of revenues. So it's really about kind of bringing two underperforming programs together and to try to create as much efficiency as we can from them. And finally, there is always an opportunity for new members to join that program, receive that training, and become a part of that system.
Hajka Andrew, Legislature Saltanaut, Loretta Williams.
Hajka for the feather, and thank you, Andrew. So I got a question about trading and bartering. So are we able to do that with cedar bark? Because as you know, that we don't have any cedar trees here that are great for harvesting. So can we negotiate with some other nation to do that? And the other is, I'm not too sure if you're able to answer this, could be a legal question, but with the news today, with Musqueam signing a document with federal government and with their territorial stuff, looking at the map, is that going to impact Tsawwassen in any particular way? Because I was thinking we have two strong nations, one on the Cowichan on the other side, and then Musqueam to the north. So not to be negative, but, you know, like it's part of our negotiating from the treaty and everything else. So I guess I just wanted to know if it's going to affect us now or totally in the future. But my concern is the cedar bark. So we need, you know, I know there's some members that buy their cedar, but we got to find a way of, you know, supplying the nation. Okay, Hajka.
Hajka, Legislator Andrew.
Thank you for the feather and thank you for the question. With respect to trading in cedar bark, that is something that our final agreement allows. So we're able to trade with other Indigenous people in Canada, and we have been doing everything we can to kind of increase our participation in what we're calling the non-market economy. So, and the idea is pretty simple. You know, we trade those things that we have in abundance for those things that we lack. And cedar bark is one of those opportunities. So absolutely, we're able to engage in that trade. On the agreement with Musqueam that was announced by Minister Alty yesterday, that agreement will impact on some of the work that we do independently and also in concert with Musqueam First Nation. We are working together on a cumulative effects partnership. So the way in which we will recruit federal partners into that program is going to be changed quite likely by the structure of the agreement, although that analysis is still ongoing. We received copies of those agreements only today. So it was just this afternoon that we were able to start digging in and trying to understand what the impact of those agreements might be on us. I will say that on days like this, I'm grateful to be a member of a treaty nation because that treaty protects us and protects our members. It was designed with that in mind, and it's functioning the way that it should. there are any number of voices that raise some legitimate questions and concerns, and there are others that are panicking. I think our response to our Musqueam friends and to our treaty partners is going to be quite measured and quite calm, but clearly the federal government has a little bit of work to do in terms of explaining their view around how these agreements can be rolled out in a way that protects our treaty rights, and I'm looking forward to that conversation.
Hajka Andrew, Legislator Spilautuit, Terry Splachton.
Hi, Chair Squeakwell. Thank you for the, thank you for the runner. Andrew, thank you for your presentation. I have one comment. I appreciate the investment in archaeology and repository projects. Protecting our ancestors and artifacts is critical. And I'm not sure if this is appropriate to ask, but I'm going to ask. Do you think that maybe this year or in the near future, sometime soon, if Squamathia is coming home this year, possibly? Hajka.
Hajka Legislator Andrew.
Thank you for the feather, and thank you for the question. So as part of the reorganization for my part of the operation, one of the big questions that we had to sort out first was whether or not the repository was going to be set up to accept archaeological remains and care for them in a way that withstood scrutiny and scientific rigor. So there's the physical handling of artifacts. That's one part of the equation. Now that we have established the repository and now that it's fully staffed, we are in a position to accept those kinds of resources and care for them the way that they should be cared for. But there's another part of the equation, and that's the cultural work. Some of that falls to my team, some of that falls to other aspects of the organization. So I'm working with some of the other departments to make sure that we also have all those things that we need in place from a cultural perspective to deal with the spiritual aspects of repatriation. I believe that we have a good plan in place. I think we have the right people around the table finally. Now we have to reach out to others within other organizations to demonstrate to them that we're ready to take that next step together. Whether or not it will be as much a priority for other organizations like the Canadian Museum of Civilization or any other group that might have artifacts that are important to us is a bit of an open question. But in terms of the physical protocols and the scientific concerns, we've addressed all of those and we're ready to proceed. So I'm looking forward to beginning that project. I will leave some space for Executive Council to raise some of the questions with the Standing Committee on Language and Culture because there's some conversations that I think have to happen there first. And we're willing to take any direction that that group can provide to us. But I believe we're ready to reach outside the organization now and finally move that file forward.
Hajka Andrew, Legislator Kuyakuya, Andrea Jacobs.
Hajka Squeakle CM, Hajka Maddie for the feather, Hajka for allowing me to ask these questions. I have a question around environmental monitoring, but I think I'll save it for the next bill on major projects. But I'm wondering, and I know it's not a big financial thing, but I'm wondering what happened to those 4 licenses we had for commercial fishing. Were they sold? What happened to those 4 licenses? I know it wasn't much, but it was something for some of our fishermen in a dwindling industry. And if they, it would have been really cool to see them flipped for crabbing or something else. Just wondering what happened to those. Nobody fished them last year, as far as I know, unless they were sold. Yeah, it would be cool to see them switched, if that's possible. And this year is another big sockeye year, so I think there's just some people asking about that. Also, one more question. Just wondering why TFN was not named or involved in the naming or opening of the Stalawassam Bridge. Pretty sure it's in our territory, and we were involved in all of that. Just wondering why. Super proud of that, and it's awesome to see Hajka Squeakle
Hajka Legislature. Andrew?
Thank you for the feather, and thank you for the question. Again, starting with the last question first. We did express our disappointment to the provincial government that we weren't involved in a meaningful way on the cultural work connected to the Stalawassam Bridge. It is a matter of some political will, unfortunately. British Columbia saw fit to engage with two groups and no others. I don't know that there's wisdom in that, but we don't get to make those kinds of decisions unilaterally. We have expressed to TIC, that is to say Transport Infrastructure Corporation, I think is what TIC means. I stand to be corrected on that, but in any event, for the proponent of the Fraser River Tunnel project, we've expressed our view that we should be involved in all aspects of that, the development of that project, whether they be economic or political or legal or cultural or anything else. I think that message has been heard by them, but again, we continue to bring it forward often. On the commercial fishing licenses, I don't recall if Crystal is here with me. Unfortunately, those licenses either lapsed or were disposed of before my time. So if she's around, I will ask her to join me, and she can expand on that response.
Please pass the feather to the feather runner. Hajka. Crystal Lynn? Crystal Lockhart? Hajka.
Hajka Squeakle CM. With respect to your question about the licenses, the crab licenses are all currently active in the community with members. And the salmon licenses, we haven't actually had a allocation for them for commercial salmon fishing on the Fraser since 2018. The in-run season management for commercial salmon happens during the season, and by the time they decide whether or not there's a total allowable catch available, for sockeye specifically, it's often too late to have the actual distribution package. We are planning on having it this year, though, because it's anticipated to be a good sockeye year. But with respect to the commercial licenses for salmon, with the unexpected kind of bit of boom with sockeye last year, there was actually not a commercial opening for sockeye. And so we just stuck with having them active. They're currently, as a result of that, they're currently just sitting there, but they're not lapsed. They're actually no longer commercial, they're commercial communal. So they've all been transferred to property of TFN, but they're not actually in risk of being lapsed or anything like that.
Thank you, Crystal. Do you have a follow-up, Legislature Kwaklia? Is that okay? Yes? Legislature Andrea Jacobs?
Hajka Squeakle CM. I'm sorry, I still don't understand why. Usually, I mean, what used to happen, I mean, and it's not a big deal, I guess, but what used to happen was there used to be a draw and there was always a package done up, so I don't know why that never happened. But thank you, Andrew, for confirming about the Stalawassam, and I appreciate the work there, and would just encourage our political leaders, our chief and executive council, just encourage and look forward to the tunnel. You know, like it's quite disappointing, and I don't know if we have member nations meeting, if we meet with Musqueam and other nations. It's just to build those relationships makes sense. And when the government doesn't, it makes these decisions, it's not right. And yeah, I just find it very disheartening. And yeah, I just want to lift up our executive council to continue to work with our nations and with our partners. And so Hajka for that. I have no other questions. Hajka.
Hajka Legislature. Legislator Taylor Baker. Thank you, Crystal.
Haichka Maddie and Haichka Kuyakuya for kind of alluding to a potential resolution that I was going to bring forward this week. About the crab licenses, Andrew and Crystal, I'm wondering, could you just give like a rough estimate on how much TFN has paid for the current licenses that we have? Because to my understanding, I am one of those individuals that has one, but we get those subleased to members and they have them for a certain period of time. When was the last time that TFN bought the licenses, and how many currently do we have? And just adding on to Legislator Quacker's question about the salmon licenses, Crystal, you had mentioned 2018 was the last time members that hold those licenses were able to practice on that. So is it, to my understanding, since 2018, there's been no commercial opportunity and that's why they haven't been utilized? And if so, like, is there any missed financial opportunity on those licenses? Because I like the idea that Kwakia mentioned about, is there a potential trade-in to DFO and get those to a crab license rather than salmon? Sorry, that must have been 10 questions, but I'm just curious on that for whatever you can remember. Thanks.
Haichka Legislator, is Crystal going to take this? Crystal?
Haichka to the Feather Runner, Haichka to Squeakquel. Haichka, thank you for your question. With respect to the crab licenses, they are an 8-year duration. So for the first, I believe the first 4 years, they're scheduled to be $5,000 a year. But after the 4th year, it goes up to $7,500 a year for the sublease agreement with TFN. In the recent year, when we've had the latest disbursement of them, we have not charged members because the actual disbursement was completed so late in the season that by the time they paid for all of their gear and everything, it didn't make sense because they were paying out of pocket for that as well. So we gave basically a bypass on that. With respect to the salmon license question, so with those, a big issue was getting them converted initially from commercial to commercial communal so that it would avoid having them auto-retire. So once we did that, they basically have been sitting there as an asset, yes. There are certain initiatives through DFO, such as the Pacific Salmon Strategy Initiative, where you can potentially trade them for other species. And so the fisheries negotiator, who's not present tonight, has been involved in discussions about doing that potentially. And with respect to the question about commercial openings, there are commercial openings depending on if you have certain types of licenses. So if you already have an existing commercial license tied to your boat, the way they do it is once they've reduced numbers based on all the different rights holders and stakeholders for the commercial fishery, there's a total allowable catch for the Fraser. And at that point, they allow you basically to have a quota associated with your boat. And so with them, there not being a large-scale opening commercially, it was just basically an internal decision that it didn't make sense to have the draw for the years in which there was no actual large-scale commercial fishery. When we looked at the numbers, it ended up being maybe only a 1-week opening, essentially. And so they just decided essentially that it wasn't worth that effort. And so they're sitting there as assets. And as I said, the hope is to have an actual disbursement of them quite quicker in the year this year. But again, we could actually not have a good commercial year for sockeye, even though it's anticipated to be. So it's kind of an uncertainty because by the time we have the assessment and everyone gets their registration and paperwork all done, it could end up only being 1 week. So it's really tough, and that's part of the issue with in-season run management along the recreational sector, the First Nations sector, and the commercial sector. So it's definitely a work in progress and a lot to manage, but I'm grateful for staff assistance and to be able to help members in this regard. So, Haichka.
Haichka, Crystal, for that response. Very informative. Clearly, there's a lot of interest in the resources that we have and the access to those resources, how we allocate those, how we barter, how we have the ability to be able to live through those means. So thank you very much for that presentation, for those answers. I think we've had a lot of great discussion about this schedule. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Crystal. I would now like to read the motion to move Schedule 12 to third reading and then ask for a mover and seconder. Motion to move Schedule 12, the Territory Management Schedule of Bill 001, 2026 to third reading. Whereas the Tsawwassen Legislature has authority under Section 512 of the 512C of the Constitution Act to enact Tsawwassen laws, and whereas the Tsawwassen Legislature under Section 24(2) of the Financial Administration Act must approve the annual budget, and whereas under Section 23 of the Legislature Rules and Procedure Manual 2025, each bill must receive 3 separate readings, and whereas the Legislature resolved on February 10, 2026 that each schedule of Bill 001, 2026 be reviewed, debated, and voted on separately during second reading. Therefore, be it moved that the Tsawwassen Legislature move Schedule 12, the Territory Management Schedule, to third reading. May I please have a mover? Moved by Legislator Taylor Baker. May I please have a seconder? Seconded by Legislator Palichia Don Williams. All in favor, please raise your hand. Legislators online. Legislator Chief Cassidy. Legislator Honkomatia Louise Alm.
I approve.
Legislator Tiesnelot Kathy Genge.
I approve.
Thank you, legislators. This schedule has now been approved unanimously and moved into third reading. Moving on to our next item, an update on major projects. I'd like to now call upon Sheila Williams, Manager of Treaty Rights and Title, to present. Cousin Sheila.
Haichka Squeaklesium and Haichka for the feather, Maddie. What am I going to do here? Un momento, please. All right. So yes, I'm going to do. Maybe I should correct this by saying major project update. I'm going to focus tonight on the tunnel project because it's something of big concern that I've been hearing from the community, especially most recently during the business-to-business meetings when the project team came to meet with different TFN businesses. So there was a lot of conversation at that meeting. Oh, that way. Okay. So just this is a slide just showing our traditional territory, and as you just heard from the territory management budget, this is what our teams do to protect our traditional territory. So we do have 7 major projects within our traditional territory, and again, I'm going to just be focusing on the Fraser River Tunnel project. We'll do a bit of a deep dive tonight. So the Transportation Investment Corporation is the proponent for this project. It's an offshoot of the BC government. It's going to cost just over $4 billion to construct. The time frame is from 2026 until 2030 for the construction time frame. There's supposed to be 3 vehicle lanes and a dedicated transit lane in each direction with a separated active transportation corridor for cyclists and pedestrians. And there will be some decommissioning of the existing George Massey Tunnel and then remove non-structural components and then fill it in with sand and water. And it's also in the application development review phase of the environmental assessment process. So I'm going to talk the next couple of slides here about the preparatory early works. So we're going to talk about the purpose and the scope and the approval. So a bit of the context of this work is they're part of the overall Fraser River Tunnel project. Again, it's delivered by TI Corp, and they have a prime contractor named Cross Fraser Partnership. They're being done. Why are they being done before the main tunnel project is approved? The reason for that is that they want to advance the overall project schedule, and they want to de-risk the main construction sequencing. So basically keeping the construction timelines lower to save money on the overall project cost. And then there's also so the preparatory works include tree clearing and site development done by Evergreen Environmental, which is also a TFN affiliated business. There's going to be utility relocations and servicing, some ground improvements, containment walls, and other temporary works including jetties, D slough trestle, and CN rail diversion. So the legal authority for this work is authorized under the Order in Council in 2025, deemed environmental assessment certificate for the preparatory works. The oversight is being provided by the BC Environmental Assessment Office, and also engagement with Tsawwassen First Nation. Significant engagement with Tsawwassen First Nation for the last three years since this project has been on our tables. And then formal reporting to regulators and participating nations. Some of the regulatory requirements and environmental risk management activities include Water Sustainability Act, Fisheries Act, Wildlife Act, Environmental Management Act, Heritage Conservation Act, which is archaeological, municipal and rail approvals as applicable. Some risk controls are erosion and sediment control, water quality and turbidity monitoring, spill prevention and emergency response, wildlife and fish protection measures, fish habitat offsetting, bald eagle nest replacement, TFN archaeological and environmental monitoring throughout, and adaptive management with defined triggers. And some of the environmental management approach include environmental compliance is governed by defined accountability, independent oversight, and measurable performance thresholds and mandatory corrective action. The Construction Environmental Management Plan, the CEMP, and the environmental work plans. There's qualified environmental professionals on site. There's also an independent environmental monitor who has the authority to halt work for environmental protection for various reasons. So this slide here shows all of the temporary project components that I just talked about in these preparatory early works for this project. You'll see there's a temporary moorage area over there to the left that was identified by TI Corp. There's also construction access. There's going to be a casting basin on Dees Island where they're going to be constructing these tunnel elements, and I'll go further into that presentation, into the presentation later. There's going to be temporary jetties constructed to help with the movement of barges for materials. And then there's also going to be construction site facilities. Sorry for all the text on this one. So TFN had concerns about tree clearing around an eagle's nest. There was a video that was taken by one of our environmental monitors recently, and it was shared around, and I think there's been some TFN members who have also seen it. And then, staff and members, came to me saying that this is concerning. What are we doing about this? And on all of those different things. And so we do have LGL environmental consultants who help do a lot of the heavy lifting for the environmental protection pieces of this work. And their senior wildlife ecologist had given me a sort of a report about that video. And so I'm going to go into a bit of detail about that here. And, the bald eagle and red-tailed hawk populations in this region are currently robust, and they are not listed species for conservation concerns. The events shown in the video will not have population-level consequences, even if the outcomes were to be for the worse. Compliance with wildlife legislation and project environmental management plans is essential. It's going to be critically important for ongoing monitoring to ensure that any potential impacts remain limited within acceptable environmental standards consistent with the acknowledged deconstruction of raptor habitat. It's completely understandable that seeing wildlife amidst an active construction site involving tree clearing can be unsettling, particularly when raptors and a known nest site are involved. From a biological standpoint, however, it is important to interpret what we see cautiously. The footage represents only a brief snapshot of behavior, and without information about what occurred before or after, firm conclusions are not possible. Raptors that feel acutely disturbed or at risk typically suspend foraging and adopt alert or avoidance behaviors. And so the question is whether construction-related disturbance adds stress beyond what would typically occur in a natural setting. The brief footage provides does not show clear evidence of active harassment or acute disturbance from equipment or personnel, but it does not allow us to rule out more subtle psychological effects like stress on the birds in the video. So we do have an opportunity to accept the proponent's offer in principle for an offset opportunity to construct a bald eagle's nest on Tsawwassen lands. And, contingent upon these three factors here, completion of a professional and ecological assessment as described above, confirmation that pole placement can be reasonably expected to reinforce the stability of the resident eagle pair, and selection of a location that optimizes territorial defense benefits while mitigating disturbance to the heron colony. So when thoughtfully sited, an eagle nest pole could secure long-term nesting habitat for bald eagles, reinforce predator-prey equilibrium beneficial to the blue heron colony that we currently enjoy on our lands, and convert an infrastructure offset requirement onto a net conservation gain for TFN lands. So that's what we try to achieve when we're consulting on these major projects, is trying to find net gains in environmental values. So now I'm going to move into the actual environmental assessment for the project as a whole. And this is a slide of the permanent project components. So we have the north approach, we have the immersed tube tunnel to the right-hand side of the current tunnel there. There's going to be separation walls included for protection. There's going to be a multi-use path, and there's also the south approach construction, and then highway realignment. So this gives you an idea of how big the scale of these elements are that are going to be constructed. The new tunnel will be made of 6 tunnel elements. Each element will weigh approximately 60,000 tons and will be about 130 by 45 meters, or about the size of a football field. Big stuff. And then here's the sort of sequencing overview of building these tunnel elements and how this project is going to be constructed. I'm not going to go into all 11 here to save some time, because I know you guys are getting tired and ready for a break soon. And here we go. So more key project components. So here's the temporary moorage location that TI Corp has identified. It's in their revised application that's going to be going to the Environmental Assessment Office. It is located just upstream from the current Tsawwassen fish trap, which is a concern to our harvesters. I brought this map over to our harvesters about a year ago, asking them, where else in the river could these temporary moor elements could be moored that would be out of the way of Tsawwassen harvesting areas. And they have identified a few of them, and there are limitations to where these elements can be stored. They have to be within 5 kilometers from the project site. They are, and they're just so large, and it's just, I don't know, there's constraints why it needs to be within a certain area. And so this kind of gives you a snapshot of what they're proposing in their application. And this was the site that we landed on from engagement with our TFN harvesters, specific engagement with our TFN harvesters. And so this is the south arm, the Ladner Reach option. It's just around the corner from Captain's Cove. And it is a navigation, it's not a navigation channel, but it is a recreational channel to access, say, the S&M, for you fishers who understand that. Old school fisherman woman here, yeah. So there would be room to navigate between those places. There would be disruption, I guess, to recreational users who are not fishers. But overall, I mean, it doesn't impact our fishing area because our fishers don't fish at that location, never have. Some of the key specific concerns that we are tracking. So under fish and fish habitat, there's measures to preclude white sturgeon, ulican, and salmon from mid-river work areas, in-water construction timing, dredging, underwater noise, existing tunnel decommissioning, and fish habitat offsetting planning. We have concerns about the water and sediment quality. There's going to be increased turbidity and total suspended solids during construction and dredging. Resuspension of contaminants from the sediments is a potential concern, and construction accidents, malfunctions, and incidents of non-compliance releasing harmful substances. So more concerns that we are tracking is under the TFN rights and interests. So there's likely disruption to TFN FSC and commercial fishers due to project infrastructure, including the temporary moorage location, vessel activity, and navigation closures. It's the importance of assessing impacts to treaty rights, not just current use. So we also look at future use. And then TFN rights and interest in plants, fish, and wildlife, migratory birds, including gathering, hunting, and fishing. Every environmental assessment certificate that a proponent gets, there are a number of conditions that are attached to that certificate. And Tawasin is always engaged with the regulators, which would be BC Environmental Assessment Office, on helping to develop these conditions for this project. So these, we're looking at environmental management plans that seek to avoid and mitigate impacts to VCs, VCs being valley components, and to TFN treaty rights and interest, most notably fishing. Enhanced habitat offsetting, and contribution to a regional cumulative effects initiative. So the EA process and the next steps. So TR Corp plans to submit their revised application on March 13th, next week. The EAO will determine whether to accept the revised application. They'll take 60 days to do that review. And if they decide to accept it, then that will commence the legislated 150-day review period of the effects assessment phase of the EA. And Tawasin's approach is pursuing its own Tawasin-led assessment of the project. And the team has been working to develop this approach alongside the PCEAO, maintaining consistency with previous major projects' Indigenous-led assessment approaches. We're going to continue to push for temporary moorage location at the Ladner Reach. The project is expected to be referred to the provincial minister for approval in October 2026. So it's a very compressed timeline with a lot of moving parts here. It's keeping us all on our toes, that's for sure. An executive council has given staff the green light to start negotiating an accommodation agreement with the province and continue to push for the Ladner option to be assessed in the effects assessment phase of the EA. And then we're going to get to some happy updates here. So Tawasin has been participating in the cultural recognition program for the Highway 99 tunnel program. Tawasin artists have provided design for artwork on the Stevenson Interchange project. Bryce Williams was selected to provide designs, and the project will be working to fabricate and install artwork on several electrical cabinets on the southwest quadrant. Installation is expected in April, so a month and a bit away. Fraser River Tunnel Project will begin discussions with TFN Language and Culture in early 2026. The tunnel project is in the early stages of identifying art options and is excited to meet early with TFN to discuss the process and identify opportunities. And this figure here just shows you whereabouts where you can go see Bryce's art installations after they've been installed. Heichka.
Whew. Whew. Well done, Sheila. That's a lot of information about a very important project that's on the top of our minds. Legislators, do you have any questions or comments about this presentation? The Legislature of Saltonaut, Loretta Williams.
Okay, Heichka for the feather. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of thinking in the future, you know, like going through the tunnel the other day and visualizing the 4 lanes, you know, like, and I don't think it's going to be enough actually for the future, you know, like they'll be doing this process another 50 years or so. Yeah. You know, that's how governments work. I'm sorry, but I guess my question is in regards to the bald eagle nest replacement. I'm not too sure how effective that is. I don't think it works so well here in our village, but close to the river. You guys think it'll work? And how many trees and replacement nests are you going to do? Okay, Heichka.
Heichka Legislator Sheila.
Heichka Squeakle and Heichka for the question. I have a report from LGL Environmental Consulting about this bald eagle nest replacement. We don't know if it's going to work. That's the reality of offsetting projects. We have an idea, we have a methodology, and we implement it and really hope for the best and do a bunch of monitoring to see if it was effective or not. And then we learn from those experiences as well, so we can do better for the next time. I think that's the best I can answer at this point.
Heichka Sheila. Any other comments or questions from the legislators? Legislature Quaquia, Andrea Jacobs.
Heichka Squeakle CM, Heichka Maddie for the feather, and Sheila for your presentation. I guess just a rollover from the last presentation. In the presentation, there was a lot of environmental monitoring and projects. There's a lot of funding that's going towards this, towards assessments. There's funding that's going towards supervisors, managers. I'm wondering where all that money is coming from. Is it coming from funds, some of the funds that we're getting from BFPA or for the tunnel? Is that what we're paying for? Are we paying for supervisors and managers? Is it going towards that? I personally would like to see more going towards, like I keep repeating, a dock. Funding for our crabbers and fishermen for the loss of all of that we're going to lose due to this work. And then the effect. I guess it rolls into my next question. What does the disruption look like? It looks like there's a disruption to the TFN, FSC, and commercial fishery. What does that look like? It's already in bad shape as it is. How can it get any worse? Just wondering what the vessel activity and the navigation closures look like. Just wondering all those questions. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Legislator Sheila.
Heichka Squeakle CM and Heichka for the questions. So the work that we do in treaty rights and title is fully covered by proponents for capacity funding agreements. There is also coverage from either the provincial or federal governments for certain things like studies and whatnot. There is coverage from funding from the Port Authority through the Environmental Co-Management Agreement, as well as a Mutual Benefits Agreement, and a little bit from the Relationship Agreement as well. So all of the work that we do is covered by external funding. So nothing comes out of TFN pocket. and that it just strictly is to provide Tawasin a seat or a seat at the table or a seat in the boat to do active stewardship monitoring during these project processes, I guess you could say. I have to say that it's not my role to be funding for other departments at this point. I think this is probably better for Andrew to answer that stuff. And I'll go to the other question is about the disruption to FSC and all of those things within the river. Now, as we go into the effects assessment phase, Tawasin is going to do its own Indigenous-led assessment, and that's one of the biggest questions we're going to have to quantify. What kind of disruptions are we going to get? I mean, we've heard from some of the compliance and enforcement folks under Crystal Lockhart's team saying that, 60% of our salmon are caught at the mouth of the Fraser River. That's a huge impact, right? So as we go through this next 5 months of the effects assessment, I'm going to be collecting all this information, coming to your house, getting all of your information so that you can help inform the actual impacts that we're going to be feeling. So we don't know what they are just yet, but stay tuned.
Hajka Sheila, would you like to have a follow-up, Legislator Andrea?
Hajka, Squeakle, Sam, and Maddie, and Sheila for your response. Certainly don't want to provide any, I don't want to sound the wrong way. I just really, I do appreciate the monitoring and the stewardship that our staff is providing. I think it's really great work. At the same time, while we, being a political being, looking after our members, and I hate to see it as ticking off a box, when it does put us, you're right, it does put us in the canoe, but it ticks off a box for reconciliation. For me, it just, I would like to see something more tangible for our members. Like we talk about at this table all of the time, we talk about more tangible for our members. So yeah, just thank you for your response. And I say this because we have our proponents here, and just like to be heard. Hajka Squeakle CM, thank you for allowing me to speak.
Hajka Legislature. Any other questions? Or Sheila, did you have a response? No. Okay. Any other questions or comments from legislators? Legislator Sultanat, Loretta Williams.
Okay, thank you for the feather. I think just clarity, like in regards to the temporary project components, you got a temporary one in Steveston. I'm just thinking historically of the maps that we had there. Is that where the ferry used to land? In Steveston to come across to where the Captain's Cove area is. And I guess another one is for the Dees Island Park. Does that affect the actual park? I was just trying to figure that out on the map here. Okay, thank you.
Hajka Legislator Sheila.
Hajka Squeakle CM and Hajka for the questions. I am not too sure, so I can't really answer if the ferry used to land in Steveston or if there's maps around that. I could take that away and follow up with you in the future, if you like. And then does this affect the Dees Island Park? Yes, it will affect it. I'm not too sure to what extent at this point yet, but it will definitely be affected.
Hajka Sheila. Any other comments or questions, legislators? Andrew, did you have a response to one of the questions that led? All right, Andrew.
Thank you for the feather and thank you for the question. There have been a couple of additional pieces of information I can provide. The former ferry that used to serve Steveston, that went from Port Gishon, so it isn't close to the project footprint here. The casting or sorry, not the casting base, but the temporary moorage area is along Ladner Reach. So it's an area that Tawasin members have used for recreational purposes. And there's also, it's close to Captain's Cove, so there's a lot of pleasure boat use in the area, but we haven't necessarily used it a lot for harvesting. And with respect to the earlier question around converting some of the value of some of the environmental monitoring work into more tangible community benefits, we hear that message loud and clear. Now, when we're negotiating the accommodation for these projects, we take that perspective into those discussions. But we also note that a lot of that environmental monitoring happens not necessarily as a function of the accommodation for the project, but just because it's required to give government decision makers the information that they need. So a lot of that environmental monitoring would happen with or without us. But knowing that that work is going to happen, we do our best to participate in a way that is as meaningful as possible. So we do take up those opportunities to be environmental monitors and work with more of that kind of Western science kind of a lens. Because if that kind of work is being done across our territory, we want to be a part of it. But we fully take the message that it's not a replacement for the impact on our rights or our ways of being.
Hejka, for that additional information. We've had a lot of discussion. There's no decision required on that. Staff are available to engage and talk and discuss, and Sheila's indicated that she's going to be coming to different harvesters' homes to gather and collect more information. This is clearly an important topic. And we do need to have a seat at the table, and we do need to have a seat in the canoe, and using our voice to advocate for the things that Andrew and Sheila just discussed is super important, but also making sure that, you know, our harvesting and protecting our harvesting rights and making sure that our members we are making sure that we protect our members and their rights as well. So thank you so much for this update. It's been very illuminating. It's been exciting. It's been frustrating. It's been you know, clear and complicated. It clearly is a lot of work, but we've come a long way from being on the sidelines of this type of work, and the growth that we've seen and the influence that we've had. And it is quite timely that we do have some of our partners and proponents here to listen to the voices of our legislatures and the concerns that they raise with respect to this project. So thank you very much, Sheila and Andrew, for your presentation, Sheila, and for your comments. Legislators, I think you've earned a well-deserved break. 15 minutes. Hejka. That was a great break. I really had my late dinner, and it was fantastic. All right, let's move on to the next item, where we will be hearing a report from the Advisory Council on Bill 002-2026, the Property Taxation Amendment Act. For this report, I would like to call upon Mark DeMello, Director of Finance and Corporate Services. Mark?
Hajka Squeakle CM, Hajka Maddie for the feather. So I'm just going to do a really quick report on the Advisory Council's comments on Bill 002-2026, the Property Taxation Amendment Act. I'm happy to say that the Advisory Council submits the following as considerations. Members did not have any concerns about this bill and were in support of it. There were some questions, most of them related to other taxation type issues. So there was a member asked if there were grandfathered taxation exemptions related to property transfer tax in the community area, whether it was possible to get reimbursement from members who had previously had to pay property transfer tax. And staff responded that we've been working with BC and Canada on the issue of exemptions for property tax. We've made some progress, but that work is still ongoing. Currently, the other levels of government, specifically the provincial, are not open to reimbursements, but we'll make sure we continue to ask about that. There was a question on how many non-members with status are currently living in the leasehold area, and we were able to respond that that number is less than 10. And finally, this is a comment that we have heard before about income taxation and PSD exemptions, and the ask is that we look to see if those could be extended to all treaty settlement lands and not just the former reserve. So again, that's a little out of scope for the Act amendments that we are proposing right now, and is not currently on the federal government or provincial government's agenda. But we ask, honestly, almost every time we meet with them, in the hopes that you ask enough and maybe there'll be movement at some point. And Squeakle CM, I also wanted to just point out really quickly that while this was an Advisory Council report, the Leasehold Residents Advisory Council, when we presented their report on the budget, it included a section on this act also, and they too had no concerns and were in support. Hajka Squeakle CM.
Hajka, thank you so much for that Advisory Council report. Legislators, do you have any comments or points of clarity for this report that the advisory has given us on the bill on the Taxation Amendment Act? Legislator Pelihua? Don Williams?
Hajka Squeakle Sim, Hajka Maddie for the feather. How many members do we have that have paid the property transfer tax? And roughly how much is that tax? I'm assuming, like, I don't know, just Hajka.
Hajka Legislature. Well, this is not about the Amendment Act. Mark, do you have that information to answer the legislator's question?
Hajka Squeakle CM, thank you, Mary, for the feather. I was going to have to say that I don't know either how much, well, how many people would have been involved or how much they would have paid in taxes, but probably transfer taxes are typically, in the thousands of dollars.